Good evening, everyone. Good evening, dear teacher Nelly. In this presentation, we are going to talk about how culture can change the way the people communicate between them, even when they use the same language. Our topic is communication style across the cultures, and we will focus on how direct and indirect ways of speaking can affect understanding between people from different backgrounds. The idea is not to compare the cultures or to decide which one is better, but to understand how the people express the meaning in different ways and how this can help us communicate more clearly in English.
Everyone, we are going to present the topic communication is across culture or percentage is based on the idea that communication it's not only about speaking language correctly, it's also about understanding how culture influences the way people express ideas, respect, disagreement, and silence.
Yeah. For these presentations, we use the information related to high context and low context in the communication. So this idea explains that in some cultures, people communicate in a more direct and explicit way, while in other cultures, the people communicate in a more indirect way using context and silence and non-verbal signs.
The purpose of presentation is to explain how communication styles can change from the culture to another and why it is important when people use English to interact with others. We are going to focus especially on direct and indirect communication, using Colombia and Japan as examples.
Yeah, to start, first of all, it's important to understand that the culture influences communications. People don't communicate in exactly the same way in every country. The culture can affect how we participate in a conversation and how we show respect and how we are disagree with the other person and even how comfortable we feel with the silence between or among the conversations.
For example, in some cultures, speaking clearly and giving your opinion directly can be seen as honest and confident. But in other cultures, between direct can sound uncomfortable or even disrespectful. This does not mean that one style is better than the other. It means that each culture has different expressions.
Okay. And a key idea, our topic is different between the direct communication and indirect communication. The direct communication means that the people express their ideas clearly, openly, and in a straightforward way. For example, somebody or someone say, I'm disagree with this idea, or I think we should change this part the direct way.
Indirect communication is different. In this side, the people may express desire more careful. They may about saying no directly because they want to deposit or maintain harmony. For example, instead of stating "I disagree," a person may say maybe we can think about another opinion.
Yeah, the difference is very important in intercultural communication because the people can't misunderstand each other. A person from a direct communication culture may think that the indirect answers are confusing, and at the same time, a person from an indirect communication culture may think that direct answers sound too strong or even unpolite.
Oh, no, we are going to compare Colombia and Japan. In Colombia, the communication is often expressive and spontaneous, and many people use gesture, facial expression, and change in the tone to show emotion or interest. And also in conversation, people usually answer quickly and participate actively.
Yeah. In Colombian context, disagreement can sometimes be expressed more openly. And for example, in a class discussion, a student may say, I don't agree because ta ta ta, and then explain the reason. This can be understood as a participation, confidence, or interest in the topic.
In Japan, communication is often more reserved and indirect. People might avoid strong disagreement because the harmony is very important. Silence can also have a positive meaning. It can show respect, reflection, or careful thinking before giving an answer.
Yeah, this is very interesting because the same behavior can have different meanings and depending on the culture. For example, if Japanese person or Japanese citizen stays in silence for a moment, maybe they are thinking carefully. But in a Colombian person or citizen may interpret the silence as a doubt or distance or a lack of interest.
Another example is disagreement if Colombian speaker says something very directly. The intention may be only to be clear. However, a Japanese speaker could feel that the comment is too strong or uncomfortable. This shows that communication problems are not always about grammar mistakes.
Exactly, Daniela. Sometimes people speaks English correctly, but they still have misunderstandings because they are using different cultural styles. That's why learning English also requires intercultural awareness. We need to understand not only the words, but also the cultural meaning behind those words.
This topic matters because English is used around the world by people from the many different cultures. In academic, professional, or social contexts, we are many interact with the people who do not communicate in the same way do. If we are not aware of this, we can judge others too quickly.
Yeah, I'll give you some specific example, Daniela. We should not think that a quiet person has nothing to say, or maybe that person is showing respect or taking time to answer. We should also not think that a direct person is always rude. Maybe that person is trying to be honest and clear during that conversation.
One strategy for better intercultural communication is to ask of for clarification. We can use simple and respectful questions like, could you explain your idea a little more? Do you mean that you disagree with this point? This helps avoid confusion.
Yeah, Daniela, there are a lot of strategies. Yeah, one of them is active listening. Instead of reacting immediately, we can listen carefully to the other person and try to understand the intention of the other person or what the other person wants to say. We can also avoid stereotypes because not all the people from the same country communicate is in the exactly way.
In conclusion, communication style across cultures show use that speaking English is not only about using correct vocabulary or grammar. It's also about understanding people, context, and the cultural difference.
Yeah, and our main takeaway is that effective communication in English requires both language skills and intercultural awareness. When we respect different communication styles, we can interact in a clearer and more respectful and more meaningful way.
Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Daniela. This was a so interesting topic of conversation between the behaviors of Japanese person and the Colombian citizen behaviors at the time to talk with another person. See you later.
See you later.